Hello and welcome back to Ecocentric. It's been a while now, about 3 weeks I guess, since I gave you a garden tour. And the hot weather has broken about a week now. With the hot weather, plants don't want to grow. Anything over about 28 degrees actually. When you get over 30 degrees Celsius, almost nothing is growing. I think corn and wheat are a couple of exceptions. And of course I don't give you just a straight tour through. I usually go by the highlights. So let's start with the squash. You know, I have yet to get a butternut squash to produce for me. I mean, I did get a couple. I get one on a plant or something, and these are growing among sugar beets. And the other thing we're finding this year for sure, I mean, I've tested it before, right, and I wasn't sure, but I am pretty sure now that you can't grow squash where things are going to grow up even to the height of the leaves. And because it's growing among this sugar beets, that's why these leaves are all yellow. They're not getting the nutrients they need. Plus, they're not getting the sunlight they need. Now, it has been putting out, this one here, putting out male flowers for a little bit now. Here's the first female flower bud right here. So whether or not I will get a butternut squash off of this, that depends on the weather. Next 2 weeks the weather is warm, so I might get an immature butternut squash if that goes through. But they were sitting there all during that full month of hot weather we had, and they were not growing at all. I mean, this here thing here, okay, before the weather broke, it was only out to about right here. And now, in the past week, it grew along here. Now, as I was saying, that when stuff is growing up above the leaves, the vine don't seem to do as well, and it's not producing. So I was putting down this cardboard, and I noticed something that I have never heard anybody talk about, and I didn't know before. At the nodes, it sends out roots. So it's not just a vine going along the ground. It is actually rooting ever so far. This one here, see, I broke the root off. And over there was a root that got broke off. So at every node, if it touches the ground, it sends down a root. So I got to take that cardboard out of it again. It's growing out there and out that way. This one, it's got some male flowers in the center there. It's got a female flower bud just starting there. And that's the only one I've noticed yet. There might be a couple more on there that I haven't noticed, but I've only noticed one. You see, there's another root right here. So I'm going to take the cardboard back up again and let it lay down on the ground and do its rooting and grow along. It's not so bad out on the grass because, see, I cut the meadow and then this is growing out along, so it's got a head start from the other vegetation, so the leaves then are up above. So it's not so bad out here. This is the one on the other end. It didn't start off as fast, maybe because it's on the west and north side of the bed. It may not have gotten as much light, but it is taking right off since the weather broke. Let's check the end of this one. No, no female bud there. You know what I'm going to do with this? I'm going to keep those two frames right there, and in the spring I'll put a couple of boards across, and I can lay some of the glass panes I have down on top, and this will be a cold frame similar to winter sowing. I can start plants in there, and then when the danger of frost is past, I can move them out. And for that matter, if I really want, and there's a cold one, I can I have a little heater, kerosene heater thing that I could put underneath the frame for the night. The cucumber vine succumbed to the heat. I only got one partially grown cucumber, and this winter squash, it was struggling, but it made it through. It doesn't look like this is growing. I missed the female flower that came out here, so I didn't pollinate it, and it doesn't seem to be growing, so maybe it didn't get pollinated by the insects either. There's not another female flower on it yet, but that's the only one, so I don't know. While I'm here, I want to point out, remember the garden huckleberry, those little tiny plants that was just sitting there getting eaten by the flea beetles. It was not growing. The temperatures, they dropped. They're down in the mid-20s now. And just look at these things. They're growing like crazy. And people tell me, oh, the hot weather, such beautiful weather. Yeah, it's such beautiful hot weather if you don't mind starving to death. Your food's not going to grow. But now, you see, it's got bunches of flowers coming. With the temperature just down a bit, over 30 degrees, nothing's going to grow. Now, I got to remember this because we're only supposed to have like 4 days or something, even with the predictions of over 30 degrees. And I've recorded 20 days over 30 for the last 3 years. If I can plant these, the garden huckleberry, in a place where maybe I could put up a screen to shade them on the really hot days, then maybe I can get them to grow better. Of course, that's weather dependent, right? Next year we might have a cooler year. We don't know. Now, see this? Where are we? The other plants with that type of squash is over there. When that female flower came out, there was no other male flowers open here. So I took the flower from those plants over there and I pollinated this, saying, well, I won't save the seed anyway. Because, remember, those 3 plants here came from the same seed stock. And it's not that I pollinated the flower by those over there, because that only affects the seed. This is the type of squash that this plant is made to produce. So, this is definitely an hybrid. What it crossed with, I don't know. Would be nice to know, eh? For a couple of reasons. Okay, it started out as vegetable marrow. We know that. If we knew what to cross with, say it crossed with a zucchini, then we'd know then how to get this variety of squash every time if this turns out to be a delicious squash. Most likely it is be a quite edible and delicious squash, but like I say, we don't know what the cross is, so saving that seed from there and expecting to get that a squash with those exact qualities out again, it's a very low chance that I would get the same type of squash that in the next generation. Now there's 2 of those we got, and there's 1 of those here. These plants over here, see there's 5 plants across here, and I think that is the main reason why the leaves are light. However, they're producing. We just remember for next year that we have to spread them out more. We can't put them in that tight. And you see, that's the original one over there. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of those squash growing there, and I have 1 over, I just showed you over across the way. So I have 7 proper vegetable marrow squash, plus the 2 big ones. So I'm really happy with that. I think I have enough squash for me for now. However, this is the volunteer. We don't know what it is. It's growing long and viney, same as the butternut squash do, and the Dill's Atlantic Giant grows this way as well, so don't know what it is. I had taken and put carpet under here first. The roots that were forming on this one, I didn't notice any roots, so then I went on to do the other one when I started. But see, there's one there. There's one just starting there. I hand pollinated this flower here. So that one's pollinated. It's later in August. Chances that anything this vine produces will come to full maturity is very slim. So I'm just going to let it grow and do what it can do. I have found in the past that I could take a winter squash and use it immature, just like you would a summer squash. When I pollinated that one, this flower here, it was right out at the peak, so that's where the vine ended when I pollinated that one that was open. There is now another one out there, so that's 2 more that might get to grow a squash of some size. There's another one here. There's another one there. So we got 4, 5. And this thing is growing across this way as well. This end don't have any female flowers starting. Yeah, there's one right there. So 6 more flowers on this. So in theory, I can get 7 immature squash off of this vine. That's going to be a lot of squash. Since I'm standing here, I'll make a clip of this cucumber. I'll just make clips of things around, and then I'll organize the clips afterwards. This is the bush crop cucumber. I think I might have shown you before. What do we have now? Oh yeah, it was in the harvest video I showed you these, right? I think I only showed you 2 at the time. This is a fat cucumber. Those are almost ready. See, there's another one over there. Oh, there's one I just noticed, so 4. So I've noticed 4 that's growing well there now. Now I only hand pollinated 2 of them, and the pollinators, I've seen bees in there. I haven't seen hoverflies or anything, but I would assume they're going in there. But the vine is growing really well up both sides, and here it's coming out here, you see, and it produces flowers like crazy. And whatever it produces, remember, cucumbers are one of those things you pick and mature, so we let it keep on going until frost, and when frost is threatening, we'll pick everything that's growing on there. Yeah, they look big if you zoom right in on them. They are little tiny guys, but that I think is the size of the fruit. Now these plants, they haven't recovered like the garden huckleberry did. This is the golden pearls. Well, there's another one, and down low there was one that was fully ripe, so I took him and ate him, and boy, it was super sweet. So if you get the plants to grow good, I mean, you get a lot of these, then no, it's worth growing. And it's something that, like you say, it's just a berry size, and they're so sweet, that's basically what you use them like a berry, right? So it is because of the heat that we got this, and we know they're susceptible to flea beetles, both the huckleberry and the golden pearls. But that hasn't dissuaded me, I think the word is, from growing them. So I'm going to try again next year. Tiny Tim. This is definitely a Tiny Tim. I am going to dig that up before the frost starts, pot it up and bring it in the house. And this volunteer tomato is definitely a Stupicea. That's what that is. I think I had a Stupicea here for Shed Wars. I'll have to check. But you see this second one here? It looks like it's going to be the same. They're not going to produce anything, I don't think. Looks like that one's got a flower bud there, but it doesn't have time to produce anything now. So the Tiny Tim is producing, you just seen. There's one right there among the carrots. Definitely not Tiny Tim, I don't know who that is, but it's got a nice couple of tomatoes on it there. Here we've got another couple, looks like it's a cherry tomato thing. I got a tomato there. They're not putting on many just because, I mean, they're among the carrots, right? It's not like they can grow very well among all this carrot foliage. But it did put on one. Just want to point out, if anybody's wondering, this is pineapple weed, otherwise known as wild chamomile. You can use this like chamomile. It's not as potent, but it does give the same properties. This one must be a beefsteak tomato or something. It's certainly growing like a determinate beefsteak. Really large tomato plant, but it's just putting on flowers now. So I don't know what's going to come of it. We shall see. And no fear of frost in the forecast yet. Over here, along with the sugar beets and the butternut squash, here's another cherry tomato plant, volunteer. And the second one over there, they're both putting on the tomatoes. I didn't get all the stuff pulled out here. Okay, here's the volunteer here. Here's a tomato it's putting on. Another one here. So this is where the kohlrabi and the amaranth is. I think there's, yeah, I'll get you down here. And this looks like it's probably that Arctic Plenty or whatever the name of it is. Putting on some tomatoes. More up here, more, yeah. That's that Arctic Plenty or whatever. Some name like that. Now, of my actually purchased plants, that's the first tomato here, other than the Hurley Siberian, that's starting to ripen. They, as well, are struggling right along. Remember, they weren't growing, and since the heat broke, just look at the jungle that's becoming of them now. Remember these? And this one here, I wasn't sure whether it was going to make it or not. But no, it's come alive. And they've all come alive. They're putting on lots of flowers. I will get a tomato harvest. And technically, I think I will tie them up. I've got stakes in them all, see? So I'll run a string around and I'll bring them in the sunroom and let everything ripen up rather than pick green tomatoes, I think. When taking out a few tomatoes out of this bed, it is kind of underperforming. The two on each corner out here only gave one normal sized potato, and then there was a couple in the center there that gave one really big potato. And I took up like 5 or 6 plants here just earlier, and I got 3 pounds, so that's only half of what I would expect. So I'm hoping that don't continue on. I'm hoping that the rest of them has performed better than that. These are the first to die off, so I got them dying off now. But now see, this is the same kind as those back there, and those, maybe they're growing slowly because they're more in the shade, I don't know. So this is the honey bed that's pretty much all ready to go. However, like I said, these are starting to fade. And there's another bed in the back, and I have 2 beds there. So that's 6. This bed, even though it's still quite green, the plants have all flopped over, which is an indication of they're coming to close to the end. Should do pretty good. And there's another bed that we're kind of like, I wonder what's down there. But anyway, we'll find out. So that's 8 beds that I normally plant. These are volunteers from the scraps. Remember, I put just fresh compost underneath the sifted soil in these beds. So I got a bunch of volunteer potatoes, and we'll see what becomes of it. I think there's one down among this tomato plant too. I don't remember. But we have that bunch there anyway. Oh, there's the other one right there on the end of the bed. As far as the ones we planted on July the 4th, that's this bed where I just put the frame down. I put down about 4 inches of bedding from the ends out, put the laid out potatoes, put down another 4 inches of bedding, and then of course when they come up I mulched them with the meadow clippings. But the top part, the vegetation is doing fine, and they are quite green and sturdy because they haven't gotten to the end of their life yet, as the other ones have been there just long enough. I actually thought that these potatoes would fry. We're on the south side of the house. This is the hottest part of the garden, and temperatures got up, well, the temperature itself got up to like 38, 39 degrees with the sun blasting right in here. But no, they held in. So potato plants are pretty hardy creatures. You just give them long as they got water. There's breaks because I remember I left the flowers there, but yeah, they seem to be coming along okay. I'm not going to get many beans again this year, but I'm still in the testing stage, see? But now I think I've got it. Got things down pat. Last year, I believe it was, I tried green beans, didn't like them. This year, this trial here with direct sowing, and I think next year, they're probably going to get all direct sowed. They're starting to change color. See, there'll be, I mean, for some seeds that I just threw in the ground, I am quite happy with that. The issue is, of course, you expand and expand. I'm going to want a full bed for each type of bean I'm going to grow next year, so I'm going to have to make 3 more beds at least. Jacob's cattle come along real nice. Quite happy with them. See that? You know what? Let's take that off. I'll set you down on the stand so that I can. We've had a bug chew into it. But basically you pull off the one end. Oh no. They come out a funny looking color. Huh. Anyway, I got 3 beans out of that one, and the one was eaten by a bug on the end. Of course, now I'm not so sure if that was Jacob's cattle or Soldier. Because remember, one of them, nothing sprouted for me. So I only ended up with just the one that I put out as transplants, which is this one. And then I put the black one in over there, direct sowed. Carrots. Of course, tops can be deceiving, but when they're pushing it out of the ground that far, usually that shows that they've gone down and they're getting into harder soil, so that to grow they're pushing up. No, I'm not going to pull one up. That one's going to be a funny one. See the roots sticking off right there? You'll see, we'll find out when we finally harvest them. There's a lot in there like that. So I'm going to have a good carrot harvest. Over here, I doubt you'll see any that's pushing out like that. No, but see, if you dig down, you can see the carrot top. But if that had gone down deep, then it would start to push the top up out of the ground. Strawberries. I had to spread some iron pellets around. I came out here this morning, and one strawberry had 5 slugs on it. I assume that they're hiding underneath this foliage from the potatoes. So hopefully next year I remember to put a rail up so that when the potatoes fall over, they won't fall out into the pathway like this. The other thing that would let us know is that maybe not let the strawberry bed itself get too crowded in, because once again, if you do that, they can just hide in underneath all this foliage. Keep your strawberry beds thin enough that the light can get in. Only have a dappled shade down at ground level. But they are ever varying. Can't remember if I told you that. They bear as long as the temperature is right. So when the temperature gets to its peak in midsummer, so they knocked off the last of July, first week of August. But as that stretch of hot weather gets longer and longer, I'll have a longer space of time where they're not producing in the summer. And then the temperature cools down and they start producing like mad again. Okay, let's think about this corn now, because it is looking hard. I see a few odd things going on here. They're probably past where they were supposed to be harvested. Oops. And I have things trying to sprout again. I'll take this off. I'll come back around. Now, let's see. This is as far as the ear grows. That's the proper size for the ear. But of course it's not been fully pollinated. Now this is better than what I got last year. And I'm just testing whether they will grow. Okay. That one's a lot more pollinated. So I can get corn off of that, and I got enough of them this year that I will cook them and see what they taste like. See, I got them. I already have one ear in the house, and there's a few more ears there. I will harvest those and bring them inside, and yeah, I'll cook them and see how well they taste. If it's a good tasting corn, yeah, they're not big ears, but hey, they grow very easily. And as long as we don't get an old-fashioned summer, then they will produce. Because I mean, they produce. Actually, I could have had them harvested a couple weeks ago. So they've well produced. We can have a much cooler summer than what we had, and they would still have produced. This volunteer is a broccoli. Who would have guessed it? I do not know how a broccoli seed got there. I have no clue. Anyway, it is producing broccoli head. This is the volunteer Brussels sprouts. We're at the original sugar beet bed. Check the size of the top of that thing. There's a few with a good sized top. And they grow similar to parsnip. So when we pull them up, we'll find out. They're just like everything else, but it's looking good from the top right now. You see, beets, carrots, rutabaga, you can let them grow on as long as they're growing. They won't get, their taste and texture won't change the bigger they get. They just grow bigger and bigger and bigger. So if you harvest them early, you're shortchanging yourself on the amount of food you can get. If you don't need to harvest them, leave them in the ground until frost comes. In fact, most root crops will be better if they get a few light frosts first before you harvest them. And they get sweeter, which with sugar beets, you want them as sweet as possible. So unless they are crowding each other out and you've got to thin them, leave them there until you get a couple of frost, then pull them. This bed, the few that did grow, they're growing along. But as you said, then I planted out this full bed here, along with putting the butternut squash in there, and the beets, according to the tops, seem to have grown just fine. That's my biggest beet so far. Of the red beets. Oh, maybe it's not. Look at the top of that one. How deep does it go, right? Even with the small beets, like when I used to plant the Detroit dark red the old-fashioned way by bending over and sprinkling the seeds along the ground, I still got plenty of beets a good size that to do me. And this year I'm going to have even better yield. So even though they'll be smaller, you know, I'll have plenty. There's rutabaga go. They're doing well. The initial onslaught of the slugs is cut back, and you can see some more healthy leaves coming up here as well. But looks like the rutabaga is going to do good. We're still waiting along on the Brussels sprouts, but check those. They're getting large on that one. Starting to swell up there. The purple ones are not as swelled up. What's this one like? So it's only this one that got the really big ones on it. But they're starting, and this will be the first year of this stint that I'm actually growing Brussels sprouts. The last time I grew Brussels sprouts was like 15-20 years ago something. Once again, whether it's nutrition or what, I thought broccoli and cauliflower would do just fine in the shade, but apparently not. And it's weak. I had a head started there, but as you can see, a slug or something come along and ate it. These are cauliflower and they're not going to come to anything. The only cauliflower that I got was that Romanesco, and it was over where those black beans are planted. It's the only cauliflower head that I got to go any sense. Now I did get the white ones to form a head before, but I couldn't figure out how to get it to form that nice tight white head. It just turned color on me. Even though I tied the leaves up and everything, it just turned color and spread out, and I never got it to go right. That looks like it's going to be a nice head of red cabbage there. And that one's not looking too bad. I mean, it does have some slug damage. Now this one is was getting eaten. When I put around the iron pellets over by the strawberries, I put some here too, and you can see the slugs is all gone. They were all over this morning. They will probably stay away now. And well, I will take it in the house and cut it apart and see if there's anything good in it when the time comes. I do have this side done now with the mulch, as you can see, and with the weather cooled down I was getting inspired. I took my little seat and went along. I could sit on and do a fairly good weeding. That's why you don't see a lot of weeds around here now. And as I was going along, I got better and better at it. And then I started using a little hand trowel thing, fluffing up the mulch so that I could get out most of the roots and all of the weeds, especially of course like the grass. And well, when I go over it again, I'll do that with this whole entire thing. But now I've also started to chip branches, so I'm going to start on that pile and refresh the entire pathways of the both plots here. It was a lot to show you. Things were coming along, and I figured I had to give you an update, because then otherwise it will be gone too far. And this is going to be a long video now, so I'm going to cut it off right here now. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, you can hit the like button. If you want to follow along, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next video.